debut of 18-fight veteran Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. I don't know why he's switching to featherweight. I don't know why he switched his nickname before the Renato Moicano fight, because that's got to be the worst nickname I've ever heard. You go from the Great to the Great Ape.
You do seem to say this about, like, every single event. You're like, this is the worst nickname I've ever heard.
There's some bad ones.
You're going to need, like, a tier list of your most, like, hated nicknames.
If you want that, comment below. But when you look at this... like that, we're back with Fight Night Picks and our version. It's called Parry and Counter. We throw it out to you. You guys throw us the topics. And from the Billy Quarantillo video taking on one Alexander Hernandez, all of a sudden we're talking about tier lists. And listen, if you're a fan of like Jay Schlatt out there that's on YouTube, there's a lot of tier list people that are doing these videos. And they did them, what, like a year or two ago? So we're way behind the 8 ball. When it does come down to it, I mean, nicknames in MMA, they go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. And when you do look at it in the overall landscape of sports, it could be hockey, like the Rocket, Maurice Richard, and his younger brother, the Pocket Rocket, Henri Richard. In hockey, they don't get too creative. Or maybe in the NBA, like a riff off another nickname. One of my favorites of all time, a champion, a great commentator, a Big Three superstar, the White Mamba, Brian Scalabrine. Or if you do look at baseball, I mean, Reggie Jackson, Mr. October. There's so many good nicknames that are out there. But when we went to make a video with Fight Night Picks, we didn't want to make it an hour, 2 hours long. You guys already used that long form content. We wanted to throw it out there to you. So then I went to make my list, Matt, and I have 419 lines on that list. So I know we're whittling it down. We're going to go with 20 of the best and worst, so 20 total. There's a lot of honorable mentions, but 419 spanning UFC, Bellator, PFL, One Championship, ACA, all the organizations out there that you can think of. We didn't miss anybody, and it's going to be subjective. People are going to get upset.
Exactly.
And people are really going to hold feelings against this, but I know you and I are both really excited.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a fun time. And we sometimes talk about fights in terms of steadiness and then peaks and valleys. I feel like with some of those other nicknames you brought up, those are steady. You know, there's nothing crazy about Mr. October. There's nothing crazy about the Rocket. MMA, more than any other sport, has some peaks and some valleys for nicknames. There are some great ones out there, but there are some equally trash nicknames.
So when we do look at nicknames in MMA, to you, what makes a really good nickname?
So I kind of wanted to break my list down in two different ways. In one, you have to fight like your nickname would suggest. I feel like those things go hand in hand. I want to be able to understand your fighting style just from your nickname. Guys like Justin Gaethje, for instance, he's called The Highlight. It's pretty self-explanatory. That guy is a living highlight reel. So I feel like that's a really important one too. And yeah, it can't be overused. That's one that I hated. We were texting back and forth, sharing some of the ideas. A lot of the ones that were on my worst list were like, hey, well, Pitbull's pretty overused. I've heard the Spartan a couple times. Those are the ones that are great. So I feel like originality and then it being true to that fighter's fighting style are the two most important things.
To me, national pride's one of those ones. Like the Polish Experiment, Krzysztof Szoizinski, when we were kind of getting up and growing up, getting ready for MMA. He was a guy out of Canada, but, you know, had Polish roots, and obviously his name, the Polish Experiment. The Canadian gangster, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, that's one that really worked in the UFC, and all of a sudden he's a millionaire. Maybe one that describes you physically, like I think of like Half Pint Alicia Zapatella over with Invicta. She's 4'11". To me, that one kind of makes sense. What about somebody else? Like I put descriptive, like the Alpha Ginger, Spike Carlisle,
and that's the thing.
Or maybe it's descriptive of what you do, like Puncher, Ali Bagwatinov.
And some of them are just great independent. Like, some of them make no sense whatsoever, have nothing to do with the fighter, yet they can still be considered some top-tier nicknames.
So we're going to go through our list of honorable mentions. I have 16 on there right now. Again, we have 20. We're going to rip through these. Hands of Steel, Jeff Neal. Very close.
It rhymes, too. Now, that's the other thing. Shout out if it rhymes. It's just a nice little addition.
Kimbo Slice, Kevin Ferguson. The Diamond, Dustin Poirier. You also have the Dragon, Lyoto Machida. Rampage, Quentin Jackson. The Eraser, Paulo Costa. Fight with Robert Whittaker, not going to happen. The Damaged, Darren Elkins. Mad Titan, Jorgen De Castro. The Machine, Merab Dvalishvili. Matt, the only way you can get out of one of his submissions, grab his dick and balls.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
White Kong, Jake Hadley. There's a lot of Kongs. There's Lord Kong, White Kong, King Kong, Alexander Romanov. Too many, but White Kong, that one's kind of weak. Touchy Feely, Andre Feely.
I feel like we're going to disagree on this one. I'm a fan of Touchy Feely.
My wife hates it, so it ended up on the list. The Guy. Levi Mowles, who's been on the regional scene forever. Wonder Boy Steven Thompson, you had that on your list, but also Fabricio Andrade that fought John Lineker. He's also a Wonder Boy.
You can be Wonder Boy until 30. The second you hit your 30s, you're no longer Wonder Boy. Be Wonder Man.
The Spartan, Christos Yagos, Martin Sano, Cody Stamen, Andre Koreshkov. Those are the 4 Spartans I could think of.
There's just too many.
Mr. Vicious, Trayshawn Gore. He was vicious last time out.
Was he though? That's the thing. Like,
yeah, he was. He knocked a guy out.
But like the Diamond Dustin Poirier, like to a T, describes him. And vicious.
If you're changing your nickname, make it count. Now, Lord Michael went all like Galaxy Brain, like he picked up a book and read it, and he went with Hussar, which is a light cavalry out of Poland from years past, centuries past. But his nickname before was Lord Michael, and it was cool.
Lord Michael's great. To this day, I basically only refer to him as Lord Michael in our videos, and I'm happy that I still do, because that's the thing. Like, Beast in 25-8 was terrible. Overtime Anderson's pretty good. It's got a rhyme to it. He's a guy who fights at a high pace. We can go to overtime. Lord Michael's a downgrade.
So 419 on our overall list. We whittled them down to 20. You're going to agree. You're going to disagree. We're going to throw it on over to the Parry Counter. We're going through the top 20 best and worst nicknames in all of MMA. Alright, so housekeeping with the MMA nickname tier list. We have 20 names in total from the best to the worst. I've thrown them in all random order, but we start with 3 legends. And there's so many legends out there, like the Gracie Killer, Kazushi Sakuraba. There's so many. Sexyama. I mean, I don't have to just go with fighters that are out of Asia. I could go with the Iceman, Chuck Liddell. You catch my drift. There's a lot of people that built their names and their marquee off of, you know, a great nickname. So when it comes to the first one, you can see him on screen right now. He's got a fight coming up in 2023, which is kind of scary, but he's a legend to us. He's one of our favorite fighters of all time. Mauricio Shogun Hua. Does a nickname get better than that?
I don't think it does. When people refer to you just by your nickname and not your actual name anymore, it transcends who you are as an athlete. That's the thing about Shogun. People just say Shogun and you know what people are talking about. They're not referring to a samurai. They're just referring to Mauricio Hua, but that's always really cool. I always really appreciated Shogun, and I feel like that's one of the best. Like, you bring up Chuck the Iceman Liddell, like there was a heyday of nicknames, Rampage Jackson. Shogun has been able to maintain his career until now, but it's one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, so I think for this one, we go A, we go B.
I would say A, honestly. It's just shy of S. It's probably not of the top tier, but it's a little bit better than B.
We're calling it A tier. So if you don't agree with it, you let us know. But we'll go with another one. This one's another legend, the Count Michael Bisping.
So for me, I really like the Count. He had that whole story where he's like, actually, if you go back into my lineage, I am the Count of, and I forget where it is, but I always thought that was cool too. And he does have great, you bring it up, national pride in terms of things like Canadian Gangster. The Count gets the biggest pop you will ever see when he fights the O2.
The only thing that gets discounted a little bit with this is everybody and their dog on YouTube, except for our channel, because just sponsors stay away apparently, but that whole, buy a plot of land, it's like a square foot, you're a lord, or a lady. Yeah, Chael Sonnen's all about it. To me, I feel like the Count gets discounted just a little bit by that. I know those things are different, but to me, this is kind of like B, C tier.
I would agree with that.
All right, we're going to go B for Bisping, and if we change it, we change it.
Exactly. We can always readjust this at the end.
We're going to throw Bisping there. All right, now we get into our next legend. The Axe Murderer Vanderlei Silva. And this guy, when he was with Pride, he was a middleweight champ, came into the UFC, had wild fights, didn't really live up to the expectation, but I think he left a chunk of himself with Pride. He had 4 fights against Rampage Jackson. The last one was sad with Bellator. But to me, like, this is an S-tier nickname.
It is, because it describes his fighting style perfectly. Like, this is screwed up, but when you think about an axe murder, it's a pretty brutal engagement, you would assume, and that's exactly what it is when Vanderlei Silva fights, so I feel like Vanderlei deserves to be the first S-tier nickname. Congrats, Vanderlei.
So those are the 3 legends that we went with. Again, there's so many different legends that you could throw up there. The list is a mile long, but when it does come to them, we went with the 3 that were really prevalent for us, and they also happen to be light heavyweights, and for Bisping, middleweight at one point, but then we get into the people that are current. Tony El Kukui Ferguson.
I love it.
Does the guy fight like a boogeyman?
Yeah. And he was the boogeyman of the division for years and years and years. So, fun fact, when you would text me the idea, like, think of the 10 for your favorite and your least favorite, I was talking to a guy I work with who likes MMA, and I was like, do you have any that come to mind immediately? The first one he told me, he goes, I like El Kukui for Tony Ferguson. So just for my buddy, I felt like he had to be on the list, but I really like it. And again, it matches his fighting style perfectly.
Yeah, it's definitely A or B for me. I'm going to throw it up at A tier, actually. And I know that might sound high, but when you do look at that one, like he's a big deal. He had that huge win streak for the longest time. Now we get into another one, Matt. Folks might not recognize the man at the top of the screen. We'll fill you in. I mean, he's a heavyweight. He's out of Eastern Europe. He was a former M1 global champ. He's been hanging around the UFC for years and years and years. His name's Marcin Tybura. His nickname is Tybur. And I went down through it, and I mean, to have a nickname like Tybur, is it because of the family that's from Attack on Titan? That was the only thing I could come up with. Or did you just decide to lop off an A and, hey, let's make that my nickname?
What if people called you Cray? Wouldn't that make you upset? That's like Tabora's like, we'll just remove a letter. Like, I hate the ream too. Like any of those. Like, I get it. If I'm sure people in Alistair Overeem's life say like, hey, ream. Like, I'm sure that's just like shorthand for Overeem. But don't make that your MMA nickname. I am the ream.
Everybody at Ankos MMA calling him Tybur. Hey, Tybur.
Tybur. Yeah, like, hey, Tybur. Hey, bye. It sounds like a baseball chirp, if anything. So for Tybur, I think we're higher on Marcin Tybura than anybody probably should be. But his nickname's trash, and that just has to be said.
It's definitely not the worst on this list. I'm going to put it somewhere between D and C. I'm going to throw it D for now.
Yeah, D. I was thinking D or E, so we could be in the middle there.
It's not the worst. It's not creative. It's not great. But, I mean, if you're out there, you got sunflower seeds, you got a bit of chew, and you're going, hey, ducks on a pond. Come on, Tybur. Let's go, Tybur. It's not the greatest one that's ever lived. All right. Now we get into one that's very contentious. Now, for folks who don't recognize this man, he debuted in the UFC December 10th, 2022 on short notice. It was his third or fourth short notice call-up or opportunity with the company. His name is Steven Kozlow. He represents, Northern Florida, kind of the Jacksonville area. His nickname is Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow. And according to him, when he looks on Topology, it kind of makes him laugh. It makes him smile because originally it was Obi-Wan Shinobi. And then it was the Pillow for his propensity to submit fighters. And he is a first-round submission ace. And he looked great in his debut in the first round.
Well,
he tired as it went on. He got finished in the third round. But then an announcer made a mistake and combined both nicknames together. And now he goes by Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow. And when we threw this out there to you in the YouTube community tab, Twitter, and also Instagram, everybody threw this one up there.
I don't like it. I gotta be honest. It's too long. That's the problem.
It's creative.
I guess.
It's too much.
Yeah, like, Bruce Buffer is going to have, like, a 15-second monologue, basically, to go through this man's nickname. So, I feel like if you reach, like, Brock Lesnar status, if you're this huge, intimidating guy, Bruce Buffer has to say it. And I hate to say this, but you're Steven Kozlow. It's a very long nickname, that's all. And I'm just against any nickname that are over 3 words.
I'm throwing him in E tier. Again, It's not great. It's not the worst we've ever heard, but Steven Kozlow's made his mark one fight into his UFC career, and as we tape this, he's like a week into his UFC career, a couple weeks. Next one. Former UFC fighter, current one championship champion. Now, he almost got finished by Wonder Boy, Fabricio Andrade, over with one. But it's the Hands of Stone John Lineker.
This is what I have to ask you. Now, I really like the nickname Hands of Stone for John Lineker. It's very fitting of his fighting style. But does he lose points for taking it from Roberto Duran? Because that's the problem. Roberto Duran's the original Hands of Stone. And I do really like it for John Lineker. It's not me taking anything away from him, but I have to go by my own rules. If I'm going to call out all the Spartans for being Spartans, I have to call out Hands of Stone for being Hands of Stone.
Yeah, I mean, I've got right here, like,
you always pull that up when I talk about anything boxing.
Yeah, exactly. But the boxing list, because you have the nicknames in this, and if you go with a guy like Hands of Stone, it's Roberto Duran that most people think of. Now, this is an MMA nickname tier list.
Ernesto Hoost may have even gone by it, too.
It is an MMA nickname tier list, but for John Lineker, it's good. It's not bad. We're going to put it C tier, I think. I think that's fair.
I feel like that's one that could go to B or could go to D, just depending on what the rest of the names are.
Well, we'll see. The next one. You talk about national pride. It's the Argentine dagger, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and he fought not that long ago, and I said this is one of my favorite nicknames in all of MMA, and it actually is. I think it's great. It really does kind of embody his style, and if you watched his last fight against Alex Morono, I mean, he was getting beat 6-way to Sunday in the first 2 rounds. In the third round, he comes out and knocks him out like an Argentine dagger.
This is why, and I knew we were going to disagree on this one. That's great. That's what this list is for. He kind of gets into car crash. I feel like the Argentine Dagger should fight like a Prime Wonder Boy. Like, just in and out, real clean, short work, like fight like an assassin. Ponzinibbio gets hit by hammers and then responds with his own, so it's not that I hate the nickname. I just don't think it can be higher than a B at the most.
Yeah, I think a B is definitely fair on this one. Again, for Ponzinibbio, I love the change of the nickname. I think it's a great one. I think, you're trying to mark yourself. You're, 36 in a young man's game? I think it's pretty good if you're going with, the Argentine Dagger. Now, Matt, folks might not recognize the guy at the top of the screen. This is a man that last competed in 2021 with the UFC, and if you don't recognize him, that's fair because he took off time from 2016 to 2021, came in as almost a plus 300 underdog against the Mad Titan, Yorgan De Castro, great nickname, and he knocked him out in the first round. This man... His nickname is Man Mountain, Jarjis Danho.
He is a mountain of a man.
Man Mountain, Jarjis Danho, Matt. This is one of the worst nicknames in all of MMA.
It's not very good. Now, to be fair, it does embody who he is. He's a big guy.
He's a heavyweight. He's kind of short, but he's a heavyweight.
If you were at a bar with your friends, like having a few drinks, you'd be like, damn, that's a mountain of a man over there. That's Jarjis Danho.
Yeah, I wouldn't get my buddies to call me Man Mountain.
No, but exactly. Could you imagine walking around the gym, people being like, hey, Man Mountain? No, that never happened. So, remember that scene from the first Spider-Man movie when he's like, call me the human spider, and then they're like, the human spider, that's lame, so then they come out with Spider-Man. I feel like that's how this nickname got put together as well. It's a low tier.
I'm gonna put it F right now. I mean, Man Mountain is one of the weakest nicknames.
I don't think it's worse than Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow. I'd put them on equal footing.
It was a happy accident, Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow.
It's just 17 words, though.
We'll move into another one. Now, people are going to recognize this guy. He's been around in the UFC for years and years. He's picked up performance bonuses. He's at kind of the downswing of his career. The Dirty Bird, Tim Means, a man that trains out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, but not at the big gym at Jackson Wink. He trains at a Fit NHB.
He does.
His wife trains there. He helps, kids in high school wrestle, even though he doesn't really wrestle in his own fights. The Dirty Bird, Tim Means, gets into, you talk about car crashes of fights. I don't know a nickname that better embodies a fighter, Matt. Yeah, I think
I love the
know
Dirty Bird so much. Like, it's my favorite nickname. Does it really make sense? Not really, but like, Tim Means, by all accounts, everybody likes him. Nobody ever says anything bad about him. I know that's an overplayed thing to say about anybody, but still, Tim Means, the Dirty Bird? It's like, I guess.
Philadelphia Phil Collins would love it because he can't give you a bam, but he can give you green eggs and ham! So for the Dirty Bird, Tim Means, that's S tier for Fight Night picks. Now we get into the next one. Now, Matt, the Man Mountain Jarjis Danho is an F tier right now. So we have a fellow fighter that debuted in 2022. Now, again, Steven Kozlov made his debut this year. Anton Turkalj made his UFC debut this year. His nickname's the Pleasure Man, and it's the most disgusting nickname I've ever heard in my life. No offense.
I mean, how'd your wife?
It's so bad.
Blonde Fighter's terrible.
The Pleasure Man, Anton Turkalj, there, he makes it. He's already F tier. We get into the next one. Oh, Matt, look at that. You previewed it. Blonde fighter Caitlin Chukagian. Now, she was a champion with CFFC. She's fought a who's who of fighters. She had a title shot in the UFC. Caitlin Chukagian has been around for a really long time. Top 5 in the UFC's flyweight division since basically its inception. And she fought a bantamweight in the UFC before that.
Was a talented fighter in that division as well.
Blonde fighter describes her. So like I said, what goes into a good nickname? Alpha Ginger Spike Carlisle. It's creative. Blonde fighter.
That's the problem. Like, if you close your eyes and say blonde fighter, does that not describe 40 to 50% of the fighters in the UFC?
Anton Turkalj is
he could also be blonde fighter. Yeah. Exactly. Like, if Tim Means grew it out a little bit, I guess he'd be
brown.
He'd be brown. Fighter. But I just blonde fighter's terrible. It's not specific enough. Like, I do like it's not like it doesn't describe her, but it could describe anybody.
I'm going to put it E tier because there's one person whose nickname has fighter in the description, and it's even worse than that. And people are kind of going to get surprised because I think it's going to kind of trick their mind a little bit. So we'll move forward. This is a guy that created the video right there. This is now that's the trouble. So you had Lord Michael Olszewczuk became Hussar, which if you really read into it, it's kind of cool. Alexander Hernandez was Alexander the Great Hernandez. Now he's Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. I don't understand the move. I don't think it's good.
Alexander the Great's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's not necessarily original, but it
exactly.
rolls off the tongue.
It rolls off the tongue, exactly. So it's a decent nickname. It's one of those ones, it wouldn't get you put on the list, put it that way. Like, it's not going to be memorable enough for us to really consider it all that highly, but we're not going to forget about it, really brag on it. His new nickname's terrible, though. It really is. It's a significant downgrade.
I'm going E tier here.
I think it's fair, yeah.
It's not F, but it's not good, so I get to eat my words. The next one. I mean, this is a guy who, you don't call him Donald Cerrone very often. It's Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Matt, this is a guy that recently retired from competition, and he could sell fights. He was on Fight Night cards for the title against RDA, like an actual Fight Night card.
A big Fox card.
Donald Cerrone, Cowboy Cerrone, whatever he seems to do, people attract him, or people seem to be attracted to him. And also, yeah, the Kid Rock walkout. So no matter what you make of all of that, like, that's an iconic nickname.
I think it's S tier, to be completely... Like, Cowboy Cerrone, like you said, who says Donald? It's just Cowboy. Like, Cowboy was the main event of a pay-per-view against Conor McGregor. People have kind of forgot about that.
Didn't go well, but
I know it didn't go well, but for the longest time, Cowboy was one of the most popular and one of the most talented fighters in the UFC, and you couldn't go, 3 weeks without hearing, hey, Cowboy's main eventing another fight night, so I feel like he does deserve to be in the S tier.
Alright, so the next one that we have, if you can recognize him, it's Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood. Now, he's been close to the top of the mountain with the UFC, top of the mountain with Cage Warriors. He's been around for a very, very long time. He's approaching 30. His nickname's The Prospect. He's got almost 30 fights. We made a whole video to start where we threw darts at a dartboard to pick a new nickname. What do we say? Like the London Lighthouse was one of them. We had a lot of them. And he's still The Prospect, even though he's moved up a division. You're not a prospect anymore, bud.
Like, do people still call Bryce Harper a prospect? Because that's what it would remind me of. Like, that's my big issue. Wonder Boy is a man now. Nathaniel Wood, you're a man. Like, you can't still be the prospect.
It's not good. It's not the worst.
It's far from the worst, exactly. Is that a D?
Yeah, I'm going to go D tier on this one.
I think that's
D
fair.
and C can start to fill up. We get into our next one, Matt. This is a fighter that's fought at lightweight and featherweight in the UFC. He is a very attuned martial artist, karate, kickboxing, good striker from the outside. Doesn't tend to do it in many fights. His name is Omar Morales. His nickname is where he's originally from, and it's worse than Caitlin Chukagian. It's Venezuelan Fighter, Matt. Venezuelan Fighter.
Argentine Dagger is pretty cool, right? It's where you're from. It's kind of what you fight like. Venezuelan Fighter, again, just describes any person who fights in Venezuela. So I guess it cuts him down a little bit from just being fighter, but Venezuelan Fighter doesn't do it for me. Like, if Rory McDonald came out to Rory, Canadian Fighter McDonald, I don't think many people would get all that fired up about it.
Nah, he came out to Red King, and people were what they were.
But Red King means, or Rory means Red King in Ireland. Fun fact.
In Ireland.
Matt,
Irish. The next guy. This is a guy that built his entire brand off of a nickname, and in English, they don't refer to him by his given name in South Korea. This is the Korean Zombie, and Matt, I don't think people have to guess where this one's going to go.
They don't even put Chan Sung Jung on the UFC broadcast anymore. They just refer to him as Zombie. Like, I remember watching him versus Dennis Bermudez not that long ago, and Brian Stan is on the commentary. Miss ya, because he was pretty good. But Brian Stan the whole time is just Zombie, 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 Zombie. Never refers to him as his real name, so of course it has to be S tier. The thing is, too, he marketed his name before anybody did in the UFC. Like, those shirts were awesome. People had them. He's got the walkout song, like you had mentioned. Like, he has really made the most out of having a cool nickname.
Yeah, and I mean, he doesn't have to have a single lick of English to his arsenal. You know him as the Korean Zombie. You recognize the kind of turquoise shirts that look like the
by
Thriller.
The Cranberries.
Yeah, and the Cranberries. So there's a lot going for the Korean Zombie. He's definitely S tier on this list. We have 3 left, Matt. Our next one... Her nickname is the Shanimal, Shanna Young. And for those of you out there, YouTube community tab, we threw it out there. Mr. Face said Soldier of God. Michael Bouchard II said the Shanimal. By far, every time Craig talks about it, I crack up. Matt, the Shanimal.
Who hates it more, you or me?
I don't hate it. I'm not the biggest fan. It's not F. It's not Man Mountain, Pleasure Man, or Venezuelan Fighter, but it's somewhere around Blonde Fighter, the Great Ape. It's E for me.
We're arguing between E and F, so it's not in a great position. Let's just say that.
Shanna, I don't mean anything by it. The Shanimal, I'm not a big fan. Now, our next one, again, so far, we haven't really strayed outside. And again, this list was 419 long, 1 championship, PFL, the like. And
oh yeah, we're gonna miss a lot of good ones.
There's like no chill over with 1 championship. There's so many good ones. But now we have a guy, and we talked about it, Korean Zombie. You know him as Korean Zombie. Cowboy Cerrone. MVP, Michael Venom Page. BKFC zone, Bellator zone. He's been everywhere, and he's kind of done everything, and he's one of the biggest stars with Bellator.
Oh, yeah.
But the MVP thing, when they do his walkout with the snake that comes out, like, he's got it going on. He's one of the best nickname people out there.
Without a doubt. And I know he might not really be considered in the prime of his career anymore. Like, I was looking this up the other day. MVP had that flying knee knockout over Evangelista Santos in 2016. Like, he has been at the top of the sport for quite a while now. He did just lose a fight to Mike Perry, though. We do have to bring that up. But I do think MVP is one of the best nicknames. And like you said, it's not just Michael Page. It's not Michael Venom. It's not Venom Page. It's MVP. It all goes together. It rolls off the tongue. He's been able to market himself extremely well through it, like you have said. So I don't know if it's S tier. Is that fair? I think it's just shy of S tier. You were putting it on A, so I couldn't agree more.
All right, our last one, Matt, and I've always had an issue with this one. So my notes on this: Pedro Munoz, if you didn't know, he debuted in 2009. He took on Reginaldo Vieira, who ended up also fighting in the UFC. So Munoz won that fight. He was 23 years old. He's now 36 years old. He's the king of the calf kick, had a great main event against Frankie Edgar a few years ago. Just had that no contest when he took on Sean O'Malley. It was a scratch cornea, if I'm not mistaken, in that fight. A lot of people were really upset about it. Matt, I've been upset about his nickname for years. Pedro Munoz's nickname is not The Punisher. He's 36. Thomas Jane would shake his head. His nickname's The Young Punisher. You're 36 years old. Like, it's like that Tragically Hip song. He's 38 years old, never kissed a girl. You're 36 years old, kiss a girl, kiss somebody, and get rid of the Young Punisher.
I'm telling you right now, Pedro Munoz be kissing girls in South Florida.
Kissing somebody.
Pedro Munoz, yeah, the Young Punisher's bad. Again, it's right along the lines of Wonder Boy Thompson, which is something I keep on going back to. You can't be Wonder Boy if you're a full-grown man, and you can't be the Young Punisher if you are anything but young. I've got nothing but love for Pedro Munoz and his fighting style, but let's say, even if he wanted to copy like a John Lineker and have like a Hands of Stone type moniker, at least it's somewhat fitting, right? It might be a little bit overused, but it describes his fighting style. The Young Punisher's lame AF. Let's just call it as it is.
All right, well, I'm going to put it on E. It's not the worst in the world. Let us know what you made of the entire list right there. Again, so many names. 419 on that damn list that you saw at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, this is a hell of a tier list, Matt.
It really was. It was fun to go through, though. We really have, like I said, MMA more than any other sport, there are extremes with nicknames. I said that at the beginning. We have a lot in S tier, and we have a lot in that E and F category, too. So there's some great nicknames out there. There's some pretty bad nicknames out there. But keep on letting us know, who would you guys put in that E and F category, and who would you guys put in the S and A? Like you had said, I see one of the comments saying Coconut Bombs. I feel like Coconut Bombs is a pretty good nickname.
Yeah, well, let's go through some of the comments here in the YouTube community tab. We have
Blessed Holloway was another one. I liked it only because Blessings is his walkout song by Drake, and it does fit like the nickname
George
quite
Rush
well.
St. Pierre is always a big one. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a lot of people liking that one. We've got RoboCop for quite a few fighters, but Gregory Rodriguez is the one that kind of takes the cake. Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson.
Semtex Daily, that's a good one.
Du Bronx. What else do we have? Again, the Pleasure Man. The Mongolian Murderer, Archie Long. That's a pretty big one. The Prospect, yeah, that one's pretty bad. Crochet Boss, I mean, Maurice Green going by that one. But a guy like Maurice Green that was in the UFC, there's also the Kraken for Juan Adams. So, listen, folks, a lot of nicknames and a lot of time spent on this one for sure. We had some all-timers. Now, we missed out, again, on the Pitbulls, the Golden Boys, the Spartans, so on and so forth. But if you do look at it, like, overall, we had some legends out there, 3 of them in total. We had guys like, you know, you just take one letter off your last name, and all of a sudden you're Tybor from Tabora. There's a lot of different things to break down. I know, like, Sexual Chocolate for John Jones. That was a rare one that was there, but we didn't use it. The other thing that we didn't do in our list, we didn't go off best and worst nickname lists that were on Topology, because there's some fighters, like 1 and 2, Jules Cottonmouth from the South Brunches, or Nick the Promise Ringer, Jacob Volkman, who was Christmas at one point, or Logan the Pink Pounder Clark. We tried to go with current fighters and some of the legends that were out there. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun making this
Oh, yeah.
content. And please, 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 with this series that we have, Parry Counter, make sure you hit up the comments section below and throw some ideas that you want for videos. We're in the holidays right now, 2022, if you're watching this from down in the future. But we really do want to hear from you.
And also, we're getting ready for those year-end awards, too. So throw down some recommendations for who you guys had for Fighter of the Year, Fight of the Year, Round of the Year, really anything that you can put an award for. Give us what your guys' opinions are on those awards, because that's the thing. We want to get your opinions, too, and that's what makes this so much better.
The MMA Nickname tier list, all the content coming out with Fight Night picks. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.